Let's roll, rolling and let's dog. We here to bring the truth. Jar open this podcast. We breaking through the fake news. They try to silence us, but we will be subdued. We're bearded alpha males here to save the youth. Spitting fire on the mic with the bass Christian takes. Exposing the lies, keeping the demons at bay. We ain't afraid to speak up. We won't be swayed. Jar open this podcast where the truth is laid. Jar openers, cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas Thug, we're here to rise. Bearded alpha males saving the youth from the godless demons, spreading the truth. We ain't playing games, we're on a mission to awaken the masses with our intuition. Pulling out the corruption with no inhibition. Jar open this podcast, sparking a revolution. We're not afraid to stand tall in a world full of deceit. We're the voice of reason, bringing light to the street. Keeping it real, never missing a beat. Jar open this podcast where the truth meets the heat. Jar openers, cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas Thug, we're here to rise. Bearded alpha males saving the youth from the godless demons, spreading the truth. Jar open this podcast where the truth will never cease. Join us on the journey to bring back peace. We're rolling Atlas Thug, fearless in our release. Jar open this podcast where the lies will decrease.
Welcome in to another episode of Offensively Accurate. Hopefully I can see some people in here very soon. Apologize because we did miss Monday. Everybody who is aware, is probably in the Discord, probably saw the conversations about it. We ended up having World's not going to end up getting back until Thursday. Look, I'm not muted this time. Congratulations to myself. Got some good feedback, which I think is very warranted. I listened to a playback of myself, and this is in response to a comment that said, the show would do so much better if you didn't say all the time. Now, I knew that was part of an issue, so I actually listened to a playback on one of the spaces that we did, or the only space that we did. And I have to tell you, I've never probably wanted to unalive myself more than listening to myself say, about 400 times in a row. So I apologize for that. I will actually do my best to be less presentful or more, not a, see, I'm doing it again. So I would do my best to avoid saying all of the different little tids and bits that will make it a little bit like I speak like an idiot. We have a good show today, a lot to get into. You probably saw the title. A good portion of this is going to revolve around stuff that it's brand new. I only recently saw a bit of it, and this is going to be the MRNA, the MAHA response to that. This is actually coming from Larry Ellison, who is the CEO of Oracle. Went on a speech, was proposed or, kind of propped up by Donald Trump. And there's just a lot to get into. I'm brand new to it, so I only did a little bit of studying it a little bit earlier today. A portion of this actually came from the fact that I'm getting a new job, so I was actually a little behind on things. With that, we have Vivek's fall from grace. So a lot to get into. We had conflicting reporting, which was going back and forth over, is this report true? Is it not? Is he out of DOGE? Is he not? A lot of confusion there that I think most people were very confused on what the actual, current status was. I think ultimately, we all kind of knew just from the prospect of the fact that he kind of disappeared on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, for an extended period of time after initially giving his statements on what he thought about American culture. A lot of people were like, time for Vivek to go back into the locker. I thought that was hilarious. And we'll get into that as well, too. Because I think with his recent tweet that he had regarding his run for governor for Ohio, or rather his statement of his entanglement and what he will be doing in Ohio, I think we can infer with the implications there of what he said that he is actually going to be out of DOGE. We'll get into that statement. I have a good segment as well from Tim Pool versus Myron Gaines on the freedom of speech on X. I think ultimately a lot of people are still not satisfied with the way that debate took place regarding H-1B visas, the censorship, everything that revolves around that, and the irrationality with Elon Musk. We won't spend too much time on it, but I did want to actually play the debate in full. It's 7 minutes long. We'll get into that as well. We also have Elon Musk Heiling Hitler. People obviously, he was just an excited autistic idiot. So he was doing, they claiming that he was doing, my heart goes out to you. But everyone and their brother is running with the fact that, oh no, he was actually Heiling Hitler. I thought it was hilarious, or the Roman salute, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, AOC and crew and many of the deranged leftists are running with it as if, see, we told you they were Nazis. The far right is like, wow, are we back? We're so back. And everyone in between is running cover because obviously they are doing the most that they can to ensure that they don't offend anybody. I am also glad that we have people in here. I see comments from Donnie and Marble as well. Appreciate you guys being in here. Glad that I'm loud and clear. He says he was running around during that space, was out of breath half the time that you spoke. That's hilarious. I was actually sitting at my desk and still sounded like an idiot, so I don't feel too bad. And Marble said those are so-called American idioms. That's why the Chinese want translations. That's funny. I just thought it was good advice because I've kind of caught myself doing it on other playbacks. I try to avoid actually ever listening to myself unless it's like for some kind of audio issue. Outside of that, I will like desperately try to avoid it because I just don't want to hear myself. Kind of weird, but maybe people are different than that, but that's just how I feel. We have immigration numbers too as well. I wanted to point some spend some time on that as well. Although it's very, very small, I would actually like to see a lot more than what we're currently getting. There's a little bit of calculations that people have done. People are like, you got to pump those numbers up based on the first day. They're multiplying it by 365 and just giving a rough idea of how many immigrants we will get deported and arrested this year. And then obviously we have a bunch of executive orders. One thing I will say before we start getting into things too, and obviously the calls to actions as well, a lot of good things came with Donald Trump. I think a lot of the executive orders that we got on day one were really good. I think particularly we kind of even avoided the whole January 6th debacle, which is the case by case, or where we're going to do the blanket pardons. We got the blanket pardons. Ultimately, I think only 14 people out of 1,600, something along those lines, only 14, I believe, have not had either their sentences commuted or pardoned in general. Now, that was a good thing. A few other things of the executive orders would have been stuff such as pausing foreign aid. Ultimately, the reality with the foreign aid being paused, it doesn't affect multiple countries. Them boys over there, as well as Egypt, Jordan, and Ukraine. At least that's what the reporting says so far. So ultimately, the pause on foreign aid seems to be almost pointless as an executive order because those are the biggest parasites on the United States government at this time. Some other smaller things we might not get into because I want to cover this MRNA stuff as well. So we'll get right into it. But before I do, thank you again for everybody for being here. There will be an upcoming Spaces on X event as long as we can get a time set. And I'm getting into a new schedule as well. So we'll have to kind of explore that, or maybe might just be War hosting it. We'll see. I'll try to be there as well for myself. Chris Stockton's foundation is hard launching. I won't spend too much time on it now, but just know that his foundation is launching. He will be on the show Saturday when World comes back into town when we're on StreamYard, and it's a bit easier to host people as well. And he'll explain a bit more about that too. He gave me a link as well for the website, everything that we will have available for you guys who are interested in his foundation. So props to Chris for getting that done. And again, like the video, subscribe, share the show if you enjoy it, join the Discord. The link should be available in the description. If it is expired, let me know. I will actually go to the comments and drop a fresh link for those who would like to join. And we're just going to get right into things. So starting off, we're going to go to the mRNA technology debate, which is being spearheaded by Larry Ellison. I'll go ahead and switch cameras over here and get this off screen. Oh, forgive me. I got to go to this one here. Okay. So this was brand new to me. I actually didn't really know who Larry Ellison was until I began seeing a lot of the people pushing back against it, as well as people like the Hodgetwins and Ian Carroll, which the Hodgetwins basically say this ain't MAHA at all. Nobody voted for this. Now, Shadow of Ezra is talking, when there's two sides of this as well. You have the AI portion of this, which is we're going to talk about with an AI surveillance system that's being kind of proposed, as well as the kind of building up the mRNA, or at least furthering the mRNA groundbreaking, the technology aspect of things too. I think ultimately a lot of people, when they hear mRNA, they're automatically going to oppose it outright based on what Operation Warp Speed was in the first place. I think that's a good response. I think it's good to remember what has been done and look to the future with the information that you were given then, I still, on the surface, without knowing anything, would outright oppose any continuation of the mRNA stuff until we have full transparency on what goes on with these medical technologies. Because without that, I think you ultimately place people in a position, once again, where they have to trust the experts. And I think there's not enough trust in the system that you could surmise, even with Donald Trump backing them again, that would ultimately make people want to go through this experiment one more time. So, before we get into that, we'll play a few videos of this with Larry Ellison. But to explain it basically, we have Ellison, who is the co-founder of Oracle, who has ties to the CIA through the company's origins. Oracle's journey began with a project known as Project Oracle, which was partially funded to develop a database for the CIA. The company's name was inspired by this very contract, with Oracle serving as the code name for the CIA's groundbreaking database initiative. So, Larry Ellison, as it says here in the very beginning paragraph there, he envisions a future where AI revolutionizes healthcare by detecting early stage cancer and creating personalized mRNA vaccine therapies tailored to individual needs. I am not an expert by any means. I can only kind of break down data and infer based on a lot of what I see with general reporting. Ultimately, as I understand it so far, is a proposal of advancing with as much data as possible. And apparently Larry Ellison has vast amounts of data that which he is in control of, to make, or what's the right word for that? But really individualize vaccine therapies to individual needs that are very extremely personalized. I think on the surface, though, if you were to give this the most objectionable, kind of look at, ultimately, I think preventative healthcare is the way to go. Making sure that you are maintaining your health on a very, very up-to-date basis, that you're doing things ahead of time. You are trying to do things in a way that you limit your risk to a lot of these different, health complications, whether that is, just being physically fit, whether that is any kind of aspect in that, right? The things that we kind of lost, because where we are currently is we treat the symptoms. People just put a bunch of processed food in their stomach, they digest it. That's how you get the population that we do, where you're ultimately kind of shackled to the drugs that you need on a day-to-day basis, living as these kind of symptomatic issues of constantly digesting bad things for you, not doing anything preventative, and then ultimately leaving the entire burden on when you go to the hospital when something goes wrong, and then being given opioids, this kind of medication, so on and so forth, where we need to actually take the preventative approach of staying physically fit. I mean, shaming people for being fat, for one, but all the things that would lend itself to you having to avoid the hospital or doctor for as much as humanly possible outside of getting some kind of regular checkup. TNT says here that he was listening to a guy at work yesterday. Another guy was in the room, and we both just stopped what we were doing and looked at each other shocked. We were both like, F that. Yeah, that's funny. So to go ahead and play this, it's just a 40-second clip here. Do you want to do the mini player? Did I do that? Okay. Go ahead and play this here. And again, any issues with sound, please let me know. I will adjust accordingly.
Once we gene sequence that cancer tumor, you can then vaccinate the person, design a vaccine for every individual person to vaccinate them against that cancer. And you can make that vaccine, that mRNA vaccine, you can make that robotically, again using AI, in about 48 hours. So imagine early cancer detection, the development of a cancer vaccine for your particular cancer aimed at you, and have that vaccine available in 48 hours. This is the promise of AI and the promise of the future.
So basically, as he describes there, is that you will get told, hey, or they find out you got cancer. Next thing you know, with the technology that he's proposing, with the assistance of AI, oh, hey, look, we now have a vaccine that will help take away your cancer within 48 hours. Obviously, a huge proposal, But I think a lot of people who are unfamiliar with these, they hear that and they go, okay, wow. Or they have the opposite reaction, which is they entirely don't trust it. If you take it at someone's word like that, you go, okay, that would seem like a great idea. Ultimately, though, we understand with what occurred with the COVID vaccine and what mRNA does, in particularly the way it kind of affects your DNA, the structuring, and the genome as well. I'm still of the mindset, many people might feel the same way, that I would just have a feeling that cancer has been curable for some time, that there's actually, let me restart this. I don't think the way that the current healthcare system, that there is an actual incentive to cure cancer. If you find the cure for cancer and that becomes widespread, you lose a large moneymaker in the health industry, because the more that technology becomes more widely available, more well known, disperses globally, people get to play with it, they understand it more. There's more of a less of an unknown around it, and you kind of have this idea of this is what actually causes the cancer, this is what the actual cure could be. It'll start off as being expensive, but ultimately, the more that it gets explored, you find out the specifics of why this one thing helps cure it. That lends itself to a long enough period of time, the price will get driven down. It'll become less of a worry. It'll be less of like the big finance thing that you have to deal with, which a lot of people in this country, unfortunately, they have something like this occur and it becomes one of the worst things in their life, not only just for their physical health aspect, but financially, as well as the hospital visits and everything that comes with that. With that being said, if we take him at its word, right, and we just trust the government and all these large agencies and such, you go, okay, possibly. I'm still held back by the fact of the way that the original COVID vaccine, Operation Warp Speed, was put forward. I'm, in other words, like I'm scared. Like I don't trust anything that comes out of these people's mouths. May that be a downfall? Possibly. But they were the ones in the first place, not them, not him specifically, but the companies and big pharma at large were the ones that destroyed that trust between the American people and the companies that provide these things. I say that because it's ultimately unfortunate. Were there ever to be something that would be such a quick and easy, like, oh my gosh, we found this thing and it only does this and this, how long would it take people to kind of acclimate themselves to be like, oh yeah, this is okay, or no, what about the side effects, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? And so we've kind of wrought ourselves in this poor position. Now, I don't even mean to say we, but this is the situation that's at hand. I don't know what to do with this outside of the fact of knowing there will be so much data transfer that occurs with this too. If an AI is expected within 48 hours to give you an individualized therapy, an mRNA vaccine therapy that's meant to cure cancer, there's got to be a large amount of data transfer for the AI to understand who you are as a person, everything about you, your DNA, the genetic sequencing, everything. And I think that's what is also kind of terrifying. But I also look at it from the viewpoint of what doesn't the government already know about me? What doesn't the government already have access to, like if they wanted to push it? And that's where I think it's kind of a bit, it's a bit more scary than, or a bit less scary when you view from the fact of it's probably already in their hands. Now there's a bit a longer video here. Let me actually move this up here. If I missed this here. I'm actually going to slide this chat thing over so I can read these messages easier. TNT said that random deaths in the 18 to 50 age bracket is up 40% since COVID. Well, I think on its face when everybody started seeing that we were having athletes across different sports at, 18, 19, 20, college age, were just falling over and, oh yeah, they just had some kind of heart condition. I think most people just on the surface were like, yeah, we have an idea of where this came from or why that happened. It's too, it just doesn't like all of a sudden, like, yeah, these heart attacks are entirely unrelated or these cardiac issues are entirely unrelated to what occurred in 2020. I think that's a stretch. And again, YouTube, not to say anything about the effectiveness or anything that may get me canceled. I just think on its surface, you ask a lot to make people not draw these inferences based on the data that they see, even just based on loose headline articles. But again, how dare you do anything but trust the experts? But a lot of these responses are people who are just like, they just hear it and they go, no. They just hear mRNA and they go, no, I don't want it. like F this, exactly what this person's putting here. I don't know who this is, individual. But from an MJ Truth Ultra, which is the main tweet I wanted to go to. He kind of quotes it in here as well. But we'll go ahead and take a listen to this. And as you can see here, this is Trump standing alongside Larry Ellison. And I think maybe the bigger story here is also the fact that big tech is the winner of every election, no matter what. That seems to be the case. It kind of irks me to see Mark Zuckerberg at these large locations, knowing what he did to the American people, and then being propagated as like this, new base Chad. Like, wow, he saw the other side. Like, give me a break, dude. That guy needs to be in prison. Who's to say how many individuals that he hasn't harmed based on what he did with the electioneering, the censorship that existed on the platform, not only from the election, but also that extends itself to COVID during 2020 as well. With the major players such as like ivermectin and I'm forgetting the other one that was proposed as well. Ivermectin being the large one, and any kind of mention of so on and so forth, you would either be shadow banned or outright taken off the platform under some guise of, health misinformation. I believe that's most of the way that they put it there. But this is a bit longer video here. I just don't like the fact that it seems that these guys are so buddy-buddy with Donald Trump. How do they always manage to get themselves in these positions? It's not even how do they manage. Obviously, large money donations plays a large role in this. They back you, and obviously they would expect a seat at the table, similar to what we see with Elon Musk, with a lot of what he was doing with Donald Trump. You really can't even quantify the large amount of support that was given based on the engagement and proposals on X. I think, if anything, that played a huge role in this recent election, was the free speech that was allowed on X and the large changing of the guard from Twitter 1.0 to Twitter 2.0. I think we can thank Elon for that, but also point out all the other weaknesses that come with it. I just simply don't like that this seems to be an example of not listening to the American people. Hopefully, we can see responses to this. My biggest thing, once again, though, is I want full transparency. I don't want this kind of not allowing people to see the inside or the inner workings of like the code, the data, the effectiveness, the side effects, all of it. I just want full transparency, because without that, again, you're asking for such a large amount of trust for people who are unworthy of such. We'll go ahead and play this and take a listen to this little segment here as well.
You look even better. Thank you, Mr. President. One of the most exciting things we're working on, using the tools that Sam and MAHA are providing, is a cancer vaccine. It's very interesting. It turns out, I'll be quick, all of our cancers, cancer tumors, little fragments of those tumors float around in your blood. So you can do early cancer detection. If you can do using AI, you can do early cancer detection with a blood test. And using AI to look at the blood test, you can find the cancers that are actually seriously threatening the person. So we can, again, cancer diagnosis using AI has the promise of just being a simple blood test. Then beyond that, once we gene sequence that cancer tumor, you can then vaccinate the person, design a vaccine for every individual person to vaccinate them against that cancer. And you can make that vaccine, that mRNA vaccine, you can make that robotically, again, using AI in about 48 hours. So imagine
So it's a repeat of the initial video, but I think the earlier portion, just to show that this was a man standing alongside Donald Trump, it gives me the same kind of fear of what occurred late in the presidency with Dr. Fauci. But there's also a chance this is good technology and this guy's not just blowing smoke up everybody's rear end. I ultimately hesitate to take that position. I would like to go to some of the more harder pushback we're getting from, which you have a post here from Southern Bra, which almost hit 1 million impressions, saying Donald Trump will lose his base if he supports more mRNA vaccines. Mark my words. A lot of people are also opposing this because they view it as two fundamentally different things. One being mandated, the other being a kind of optional therapy, as they keep saying it, that you can partake in if you would like to approach your cancer treatment as such. I believe as it stands right now, it will be listed as like one of the experimental cancer treatments that you will have to sign up for, meeting different standards. And I think there is a portion in which you would have to be at a life threatening stage. And I think that's who they ultimately give a lot of the experimental cancer treatment options to, are people who have already undergone chemo and everything else that could kind of get them better or remove the cancer entirely and are out of options. Thus, they ultimately qualify for being into one of these programs that would give them who knows what, but it could be anything. And it's just a 1% chance, a shot in the dark. And hopefully that you get a ultimate answer from that. And then maybe you're just the first person who beat cancer because you did this crazy mRNA vaccine therapy or any other experimental operation that falls under that. I wouldn't take this hard of a stance. I'm less inclined to just believe that and take this at service value for what we know now. I think right now most people hear these words and they go, oh, definitely not. If we get more information, it's explained in a way that is different and away from the mandate, because ultimately they're not going to lock people down in 2025 because of cancer. But I think people will still outright oppose the mRNA gene therapy until we get the transparency that many people wanted the first time around. Larry Ellison, though, is not just on the side of gene therapy and the mRNA. He's ultimately got another segment that's going viral, and the Hodgetwins highlighted this as well, talking about AI surveillance systems. Now, again, I'm very new to this individual, so I've only been able to intake what I've seen in the last 24 hours since this has been stated and has been getting, publicly blown up. The Hodgetwins say, get this dude away from the Trump admin. The quote here from Chief Nerd is that Larry Ellison says citizens will be on their best behavior with an AI surveillance system. Two thoughts. The first is F this dystopic society, but the second is there's no way around it. There's no way out of it. I don't foresee a future in which we don't have some form of a hierarchical social credit system that's built around an AI global system, might even not be global, but national at first, but some kind of large AI system that's meant to place a lot of the burden of what cops would normally be expected to deal with in a computerized system that tracks the way people act when you wouldn't be expecting it, the way that you show up at work, the way you behave ultimately in a grocery store. All of these things that we kind of fear China's already doing and probably already doing. I think there's no way around it. I think technology exponentially grows, and this is just a huge black pill. But I just don't see this momentum slowing ever. As long as, whether it's big Silicon Valley or little Silicon Valley, the PayPal mafia, all of these big tech oligarchs, they ultimately remain in power with their influence over the technological departments. And as you saw, even with the H-1B visa stuff, clearly the main factor that involved in winning against China is developing these AI systems. And that'll be the argument if anyone tries to push back and say, no, I don't want this. They say, well, if you don't want this, it doesn't matter because China will build it anyways. I think even on the national security argument line, most people will fall in line and say, well, yeah, we can't have China build an AI robot system. We need one for ourselves. It will just not stop. I think that what we can do is course correct and for how much control it has, but I think that also would require a digital constitution, as well as amendments given to the actual constitution. I think before we even dive into this dystopic area of society, what many people fear, George Orwell, 1984, all these people, we will need to ensure that we enshrine the rights that the ones that we've already kind of lost, but ultimately idealize as many protections as possible before we begin exploring these ventures. Because if you don't do it in the beginning, it's very hard to kind of get those rights back. And so you got to ensure, as explicitly as humanly possible, you outline what the AI is allowed to do, what these surveillance systems are allowed to do, what mRNA vaccine technologies are allowed to do. Otherwise, you will be stamped over by the government and those who have anything to gain, um, especially people like big tech. Elsie Tardo says, China punishes people for being degenerates in jaywalking. Yes. Yeah. I think a lot of people have seen those clips where some guy is caught on camera because the AI knows where he's standing at, and the camera sees in the angle, oh, he didn't stay within the lines. Pull out his phone. Your social credit score went down 18 points. You jaywalked at 123 Main Street, and that's just the way they control people. What comes with that too is a lot of cameras. Cameras are going to be everywhere. If they're not already, I think most people have an understanding if there's a camera on every kind of street corner. It's pretty rare. You even compare this to like how people got away with murder, like in the 1930s, 40s, even way before then, and it was pretty commonplace you could, and or at least it'd be hard to track you down. Nowadays, it's if you do it anywhere in an urban metro area, it's impossible to even try to get away without your license plate being tagged or being seen on some kind of connective cameras, CCTV, security footage from the mall to this parking lot area to that Walmart over there. It's just crazy how kind of tight knit this web is. But to go back to this video here and let him talk for himself, he's proposing it as a good thing, as you could already probably kind of guess for that. So we'll take a listen to this.
The police will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording, watching and recording everything that's going on. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on. And it's unimpeachable. The cars have cameras on them. I think we have a squad car here someplace. But those kind of applications using AI, if we can use AI, and we're using AI to monitor the video. So if that altercation that occurred in Memphis, the chief of police would be immediately notified. It's not people that are looking at those cameras, it's AI that's looking at the camera. No, you can't do this. It would be like a shooting. That's going to be immediately, that's going to be an event that's immediately, an alarm is going to go off, it's going to be, and we're going to have supervision. In other words, every police officer is going to be supervised at all times. And the supervision will, and if there's a problem, AI will report the problem and report it to the appropriate person, whether it's the sheriff or the chief or whomever we need to take control of the situation. We have, same thing. We have drones. We just, if there's something going on in a shopping center, and I'll stop. A drone goes out there, get there way faster than a police car. There's no reason for, by the way, high-speed chases. You shouldn't have high-speed chases between cars. You just have a drone follow the car. I mean, it's very, very simple. And the new generation of autonomous drones.
So basically saying, there's no need to run. There's nowhere to go. The drone will just follow you. It'll tag you. We'll wait for you to either run out of gas, stop somewhere. That's better that the police can come and find you. Funny enough, though, he uses the police, the one argument that I think sits as nonpartisan even, at least how it sits for a lot of people. There's a lot of cops that suck. There's a lot of cops who are awful people. There's a lot of cops who disregard their oath to the Constitution. Most people will definitely agree that they would rather have a better adherence to what they're supposed to be doing. But by Trojan horsing it with this kind of technology, it's kind of a big pill to swallow. I see what he says there. If you were to take him at face value here, which would be you would have, if there was misbehavior or some kind of illegal activity that was detected, then you would have it report to the automatic person who is supposed to know about it. The AI would do it. But I think that's the easiest way you could frame this. Ultimately, why would you expect it to not be used on citizens? Like, what kind of protections do we have that would not be hoisted on the American populace on top of just cops? Who's to say that companies don't implement that at workplace, that monitors you at your job for the 9 hours you're there, 8 hours, whatever amount, and it detected that you were on your phone 3 different times between the hours of 2:21 p.m. and 3:34 p.m. And then you get automatically pay deducted because you weren't being as productive as you could have been. A lot of scary stuff to come with this. But I think the biggest black pill still remains that I don't see it stopping anytime soon without, I mean, for one, unless people ultimately scream at the top of their lungs and say we would do anything to prevent this, we get a Terminator kind of like a dystopic future where we're fighting robots all of a sudden. We come to realize they've been doing this for the last 30 years. It's been the CIA top project. That's what's been in Area 51, so on and so forth. That's kind of like the military technology. We have no idea about. Who's to say, though? It's depressing to even think about, but I think that future is on the horizon. I'm glad to see people opposing it for what it is currently, but I don't see it stopping, and it just sucks to see the president that we just elected stand there side by side, buddy buddy, with someone proposing an ultimate American versionized surveillance system, and it's going to be connected to a credit score. They'll pair it with X in the way that you behave on social media, as well as all of your daily activities. It's just a future that I wish I didn't have to exist in. I wish I was born like 20 years earlier. It's nice to see you guys in here. Tix Bomber, we got Warl in here as well. What is up? He just got back to the hotel from last night in D.C. That's awesome. Glad your trip has been going well. That he's toured the Capitol and he wore his insurrection beanie. That is hilarious. Glad to hear that, man. Hopefully we'll be talking to you soon here on Saturday and on our next stream. I want to go to Ian Carroll's response to this. We could call the show the Ian Carroll watching show, but I think that he has a lot of great points. I wanted to highlight this because I think he is one of the best people in the space to be talking about this, for as much as he understands and knows, not only just with the tinfoil hat conspiracy theories, but his finger on the pulse of CIA and intel agency operations. So Ian Carroll says, quoting one of the earlier ones that we had just looked at, he says, "It's make America healthy again, not make America all get AI scanned and MRNA experiment on. Larry Ellison is CIA. This is atrocious and has no place in this administration. Terminate everything about this right now." And so we won't need to watch this again. I don't know if I like that or not. 41,000 likes on it, 1.6 million views, a lot of responses. This is going to be the discussion moving forward. Obviously, the good times can't last very long. This overshadows almost all of the executive orders that we saw that were positive, but should have happened. We knew it were going to happen, the day one stuff, but it's immediately being overshadowed by a more dark entity, which is moving into a future of like the Matrix or something similar to that. He did a video, though. We will go ahead and take a listen to this as well. He had a video response from maybe an hour or two ago. Ultimately, he says, hell no, about 7 minutes long. I think this was great as well. He's saying all of MAGA and MAHA should oppose this project to their last breath. We are the media now. Get loud. It's one thing to fund AI innovation. It's a different thing to give a golden ticket to a CIA stooge and a sociopathic murderer, to give them oversight over what could quite possibly be the invention of AGI paired with a digital mass surveillance state. Hell no. So go ahead and take a listen to this. He titled this video, "Trump Stabs MAHA in the Back." I almost made that my thumbnail or my title for this video as well. The only thing I've seen from Trump is essentially put Larry Ellison on the stage. Who's to know how much more involvement there is as well. I just hope we didn't, fell for it again award. I just hope this is not the ultimate future we have facing us 2025 moving forward. But we'll go ahead and take a listen to this. I'll go ahead and turn the volume down as well because I know it's going to be pretty loud.
I just thought it would be more than 2 days into the presidency. This message is specifically for Donald Trump and his team, as well as every Trump voter out there. Fuck no. Listen, Mr. President, we understand that to put America first, you got to make some big deals with some big dollar signs. And we understand that AI is like the arms race of our time. We understand. But I don't think you realize who you're giving the keys to the castle to. I'm sure Larry seems like a great guy in person when he's talking big money to you. But this is how you lose your entire base. This is how you lose every single person in the media that just supported you. I guarantee you this is how you lose Tucker. You'll lose Alex. You'll lose Joe. You'll lose Candace. You'll lose just about everybody except for Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro. The number one reason why you just got elected is because of the way that COVID was handled and because of the vaccines, which we are giving you the benefit of the doubt and giving you a pass despite your love of Operation Warp Speed. The American public is awake to the vaccine bullshit. mRNA technology is not vaccines. That's why they changed the definition of vaccines. And a huge number of your voters were either directly injured by the vaccines, had loved ones killed by the vaccines, or have some very serious questions about the vaccines. Those vaccines were made in partnership with another tech billionaire that has no understanding of genetics, no understanding of medical health, no understanding of anything except for making a profit. And we are working on getting him accountable, and you're already naming another tech CEO for the new health bullshit.
One thing I would like to add here too, Dr. Fauci was pardoned by Biden with one of his last pardons that he gave in the last minute, along with General Mark Milley, the January 6th committee, and 5 other members of his family. It's a disgrace, but I would like to personally see investigations done at the highest level for everyone who is involved, from Dr. Fauci onward, the EcoHealth Alliance, the WHO, since we withdrew. And with the pardon, he will now be able to stand as a key witness to such investigations. I would like to see as much transparency and as much information as humanly possible. Ultimately, with the pardon and the way that system works, Dr. Fauci will not be facing any kind of justice for what was done, what he did ultimately to the American people. But I would like to see at least every ounce of it that we can uncover be destroyed until the end of time. It was maybe the largest crime against humanity, what occurred with this. I'm unsure if YouTube even appreciates what I'm saying about this right now or what Ian is saying about this right now, but the point stands. This is the way it has to be treated. And moving forward, I think one of the biggest things we even talked about, as well as Worrell agrees too, is the biggest flaw about the Trump presidency was the way that Operation Warp Speed was handled, and this constant highlighting of that was from himself, that was one of the best things that he did during his presidency. Like Trump will say it himself, like Operation Warp Speed was a great success, yada, yada, yada. The base disagrees. And I agree here with Ian, as a lot of people will fall away from this mega, whatever you want to call it, whatever it kind of even turns into, if this isn't course corrected against and we move to a different position. I do kind of agree with Ian's first take here in the beginning, which is we couldn't have made it even 2 days before something ridiculous like this occurs in the first place. That's why I titled it mRNA debate, MAGA versus MAHA, or mRNA versus MAHA, really. This seems to go against everything that RFK even kind of joined in alliances with Trump over, which was the exploration and wanting to make America healthy again. Large black pill, but I'll go ahead and play the rest of this video.
See, Larry Ellison is straight up CIA. He founded the original Oracle as a CIA project back in the 70s, which he later shut down before opening Oracle, the corporation, which is totally not a CIA front company, despite the fact that they've been funded by the CIA their entire time. Larry Ellison has always been a huge proponent of a government surveillance state. He was exceptionally vocal right after 9/11. He has for decades wanted a national security database combined with biometrics, thumbprints, handprints, iris scans, or whatever is best to detect people with false identities, i.e. to surveil the American people at all times. And Oracle's already doing that. Oracle is the databasing software that backends basically every website that you use. You don't even know it, but Oracle interfaces with everything, and they have all of your data, your bank account, your checking balance, your savings balance, all Oracle databases, airline reservations, what books you buy, everything you do on the internet is basically already in Oracle's database. And what this plan is applying insane amounts of money to build enormous server farms to make the biggest AI the world has ever seen, so that they can unleash that AI into our human data set, into this new fake world they're building. And what better person could you collaborate with than Sam Altman, whose company OpenAI just openly murdered a whistleblower named Suchir Balaji in front of the whole world, and we all know it, and it's super obvious. The crime scene is filled with evidence that this was.
If you want to know more about this, I will say Tucker Carlson had, I believe, the mother or the daughter of, I believe it was the mother of the whistleblower. I will add allegedly to a lot of this because I've only seen service level coverage of it from Ian Carroll and others like that. The Tucker Carlson is podcast with her is queued on my list. I've been waiting to get to it, but I wanted to highlight that too if you wanted to know more about the specifics of the supposed suicide. You could even say here in this quote here, or the subheadline, which reads, the whistleblower Suchir Balaji's mother reiterated that her son's death was not a suicide in an interview with Tucker Carlson. So a lot to explore there as well. And one thing I will add is it seems that what Oracle is doing currently at a larger scale is what Facebook was doing when it was creating, and probably still does, with the shadow profiles, ultimately aggregating as much information as they possibly can based on the relationships from everyone that is on Facebook. If you already didn't have a profile, that is, seeing a post from a mom and a father talking about their son who doesn't seemingly exist on Facebook would then get shuffled into a shadow profile because now we know this person exists, they're just not here on Facebook, and then it would aggregate information there. What it saw right there from Ian on that other article was Oracle aggregating information on things such as your airlines, your purchases, your website history, all the kind of online traffic that you have, building a database on the personality and likes and dislikes of said individual and where they spend their time. In a couple comments here, we have we're all saying those three AI dudes funding Stargate seems sketchy to me. Yes, I think anybody in big tech is sketchy at this point. Bob Maluga says the phone you're all staring at knows your fingerprints and retina already. That is correct with Face ID, the fingerprinting, the fingerprinting is one thing I've never done, but the Face ID thing, that's why I already said at the beginning a little bit earlier is as much as this sucks, they've already gotten a bunch of information. It's just that they don't have the kind of legal action required to act on it and build entire systems around it without it ultimately becoming a suable offense or opening themselves up to liability issues. They've already got your information. I think that's why a lot of people ultimately just went ahead and were like, just take my face and my fingerprint, everything you need, because they already have it. That's like the black pill. People already know and understand. Even a lot of people who aren't even politically affiliated know based on the things that were released with Edward Snowden, with the TVs, the secret recordings, the Alexa stuff, recording things in a room. The famous police case where they were able to catch the guy based on the Alexa recording, or got more evidence. I forget the actual specifics of this, but Alexa had been recording the room. They used what was recorded in that room as evidence, even though nobody provided it, and it was his own Alexa device that did so, or it was someone's in that home's Alexa device, and it wasn't turned on at the time, which then they realized from that data then that it must be recording at all times. Pretty scary prospect, but we'll go ahead and continue here.
Not a suicide. His apartment was ransacked. He had a meal out on his table. He went into the bathroom and then proceeded to struggle against himself and leave blood everywhere, clearly showing that he was the only one there and that it was just a normal suicide, despite him having a thumb drive, which is now missing, filled with evidence that OpenAI's entire business model is probably illegal. and violating billions of dollars worth of copyright laws by stealing the entire internet's worth of content. Yeah, we still don't have answers on that too. And Homeboy is now in charge of the biggest AI ever built. And that's why the internet is ablaze right now with professionals in the health fields saying that this is retarded, like never gonna work, horrible people, bad idea. mRNA technology is causing the cancer. It's not gonna solve it. You lose all of the doctors that spoke up against COVID that are literal heroes and icons now, like Dr. Robert Malone. You're gonna lose the support of all the pundits and all the people in the media that were hoping for answers, hoping for retribution. Let's get one thing straight here, Mr. President and your team. We voted for you for a reconciliation, for the Nuremberg trials 2.0, for holding Fauci to account, for undoing some of the medical tyranny that was done to us, the American people, over the last 4 years. This is not good. And everyone who's been paying attention knew that this was coming. The main threat during a Trump administration has always been the technocratic billionaire class getting into Trump's corner and then lobbying him and getting him to do the whole pre-crime, the whole digital surveillance, medical kind of like genetic engineering, science, technology, like this one world government technocratic rule. That has always been the next boss, and we know this. Some of the most valid and loud criticism that I've gotten over the last several months has been from like the Whitney Webb, Derek Bros corner. And they're totally correct that Trump has some seriously sketchy ties to tech oligarchs and to transhumanists like Sam Altman, Larry Ellison, like Peter Thiel. And while yes, I am very glad that Trump won, and I am so much happier to be doing my job and trying to hold the government to account in a Trump environment than in a Kamalanism environment, but I just didn't think we'd have to start on day 2. Like, I figured that we would at least have RFK Jr. confirmed before we had to start fighting the war for the future of humanity. I mean, seriously, remember COVID. Remember 4 years of being coerced and demonized and slandered and straight up like discriminated against or even injected against your will with experimental gene therapies that can cause life-changing side effects. We're never going back. And if you're a Trump voter, it is your duty right now to stand up against this policy and to make your voice heard that we want nothing to do with this. We are okay with innovating in AI and innovating in technology and putting a bunch of money towards America first innovation, but these are not the people to put at the helm of that ship. Thank you very much.
You know, one of my thoughts as we got later into the campaign with Donald Trump, as he was facing a lot of the court cases and the legal political warfare against him, which I think is echoed by a few other people as well, is the idea that he might have actually been scared about what he was going to be facing with the political persecution. And so he needed money. He needed money to not only run the campaign, but he also needed money to fight all of the legal lawsuits, to avoid the liability, to avoid going to prison as an old man. And that's what he is. He's a very old individual now at this point, obviously more spry than Joe Biden, but still old. And I think an easy implication there, an easy inference rather, is what does he owe these people now that they donated hundreds of millions of dollars into his campaign and allowed him to be president to avoid all of those negative effects? What IOU does Trump now have to answer to? And I think that might be where we're at. And you point out all the poor ties, all the things that would rather highlight a betrayal of the American people, the ones who put him in there, to oppose a lot of these things. Obviously voting in spirit of against the Dr. Fauci in the COVID era. I, too, did not think we would be starting on day 2 of this kind of response, this kind of dystopic future. And it just sucks to see it play out. But I think Ian Carroll's ultimately right. You have to make yourself, your voice heard. You are the media now. You know, screw CNN or whatever Fox News says. Screw holding this absurd kind of loyalty to Donald Trump. You have to be vocal for your own interest, and that's not, you don't owe anything to this man. He already got your vote. He now needs to work for the American people. Anything less than that, it will be once again a travesty, and we can't allow our guards to fall down just because, Donald Trump has aura. But that's where the current mRNA debate is at currently. I'm sure we will see more from Larry Ellison in the near future. I'm sure this is not going to be the last that we hear about this. It will probably be what overshadows everything, including all of the good that we got from the executive orders, which there was good with the J6 and the firing of immigration judges, with the withdrawing from foreign aid, even though it's not the countries we need to stop funding. All of the stuff that came from it, especially the woke DEI crap, I think eliminating a lot of the sources of that, the gay, transgender, the cute quota systems, all of that, eliminating every ounce of it was good, a net positive, like thumbs up. Now we move on. The fight doesn't end there. We have to move forward. I also apologize. I think my camera may be having issues. I think one of my cords is bad. So I apologize if my camera goes out or looks poorly. To move on, though, to the second large topic here would be the fact that we had conflicting reporting regarding Vivek's stance inside of DOGE. For those who may not remember or didn't watch previously or weren't tuned in, during the H-1B visa debacle, debate, discussion that occurred on Christmas and up until New Year's, a little bit after then, we were fighting on a front about legal immigration, more so than we were illegal immigration, that came in the form of H-1B visas, work visas, and the specifics of such programs and the abuse that occurs behind them. However, one of the pieces that was a side point to the entire thing was when Vivek went on a limb and talked shit about the American culture in the highlight of how a culture that celebrates, I forget how he worded it specifically, but a culture that celebrates the prom queen and high school jock over the mathlete and the debate king is why the society and culture sucks. He had a few other takes, but ultimately dumped on American culture. Some of the funniest takes were people pointing out as like, yeah, my kids had too much fun growing up. I didn't whip them into being these, engineers at the highest level, and that's why we're all terrible people now. Ultimately, just highlighting a big discrepancy in the way that people, the MAGA base, views the American culture, and the way the top of the top, the elite, the cream of the crop, the creme brulee, Vivek's and so on, view people. This elicited a response from Sam Hyde on two fronts, not only just for Elon himself, but a response to Vivek's specific comments about the American culture. A fundamental battle happening on what is an American. Now, I have an idea of what an American is. It seems that the elitists, these big techs, the PayPal mafia, oligarchs, these higher ups who have, in my opinion, zero place in ever uttering words about the American political system, seem to oppose. Now, they view GDP as being the ultimate shape of a nation. That's what makes America great, is how much profit did we incur? How many things did we make and sell to other countries? I mean, it's a dumb way to look at it, but ultimately that's the way most people felt about it. This led to Vivek not responding on X for some time. He got, I don't believe, ratioed, but many, many people responded. Many people took issue with what he said, and ultimately what we got was a few days ago is Vivek supposedly running for the governor of Ohio or some other position in the political realm here in Ohio, which on the front would imply that he would not be working with DOGE if he's spending his time in Ohio doing political things. Then people begin to put together, with him not responding for some time, he did the PR move, which is when you do something really bad for your PR, you disappear. Now, this was seen with like the Dylan Mulvaney stuff after the Bud Light. I think Dylan Mulvaney didn't post for like almost 2 months after the initial kind of large viral moment that caused people to go into an uproar. Vivek did the same thing. You combine those inferences, the implication would be that he's being let go. And then we got confirmation from it from, I believe, the White House and a few other people. And we'll go ahead and break that down. And we got funny memes too, which was go back in the locker, Vivek. People clearly did not agree with what Vivek said about American culture and the way that we should move forward with that. So to switch my screens here, we have this hilarious little picture of Sam Hyde. And you have from Eric Daughtery, he says, Justin, Vivek Ramaswamy is no longer part of DOGE. That's from MSNBC on January 20th. There were a lot of conflicting community notes when this first came out. Many people were saying this wasn't true. Many people were saying it was an attempt to split the base and separate Vivek from MAHA. I would argue he did that himself when he opened his mouth and showed that he has no idea what it is to be an American. I believe it is all but confirmed now. We can go to his tweet himself, but AF Post continued with another report here, and I'll go ahead and get rid of some of these tabs here so it's cleaner to look at. AF Post says the White House confirmed Vivek Ramaswamy will not hold a position in the Department of Government Efficiency, and that seems to be an older picture there as well. And then earlier I did see that there was a community note on here, as well as many others that had initially said that, saying it had not been confirmed. Those seem to have been removed now. Vivek himself tweeted, however, and I think this is all the confirmation that you need, and he's quote tweeting here. I have no idea who this is, but he's quote tweeting this, who is quoting another spokesperson for the Trump transition team. It says, Vivek Ramaswamy played a critical role in helping us create DOGE. He intends to run for elected office soon, which required him to remain outside of DOGE based on the structure that we announced today. We thank him immensely for his contributions over the last 2 months and expect him to play a vital role in making America great again. And that's what Anna Kelly, who is a spokesperson for the Trump-Vance transition team, said in a statement. I think this is a way of avoiding the very bad PR without eliminating Vivek's career entirely from just saying Donald Trump said you're out from what you said. A way to not entirely tarnish the image and the momentum that Vivek has gained. I think, you could call it a good or a bad thing, but they wanted to keep the ties at least not entirely publicly soiled so that everyone could see it looks like Vivek ran out of time here with the Trump campaign, or it looks like Vivek definitely got booted out and fired by Donald Trump. Now, Vivek says in himself on this tweet, it was my honor to help support the creation of DOGE. I'm confident that Elon and team will succeed in streamlining government. I'll have more to say very soon about my future plans in Ohio. Most importantly, we're all in to help Trump make America great again. The easy inference here is that he is no longer part of DOGE. I don't believe you need any more confirmation than that. Whether you believe it was for the reasons that most people believe it to be, or for something else, that he just decided to step away from DOGE and go explore Ohio's political realm, up to you. I think the answer is pretty obvious. They just did this to avoid a lot of negative PR and avoid the fissure that currently exists based on the statements that Vivek had said, along with the MAGA base there too. But to catch up on some of these comments here, I think House kind of nails it here with this comment. He says, I should have never let my kids have sleepovers. Now they may never get rich running a pump and dump stock scam. And yeah, that's the thing what most people had that feeling of, which was it seemed that he was pointing at the fact that Americans have too much fun and we need to operate like China. The reason we can't compete with China is because we don't treat our kids like cogs in the machine that we need them to be, so you can make me more money. That's how it came off to most people, and that's how it came off to me. Bob Maluka says Vivek is Indian Obama. That's correct. I mean, he's also a WEF speaker. I think Vivek took a lot of notes, and he definitely did his due diligence for public speaking. I think you have to give him those kind of props. He did well to speak to the average person by having that kind of charismatic appearance when he does political stuff. I thought there were good things about Vivek, but I think the mask off moment did everything to erase all of that goodwill that he had garnered, at least with me. Maybe other people feel differently, but I ultimately would always take the position of I would never vote or want a politician in this country that I would personally put a vote behind if they weren't a Christian, an American first Christian. That's how I view things. That's how I view how America will improve. Obviously, politics is downstream from culture, and if the culture is not Christian, it's some split up amalgamation of Hindu, Satanist, Islamic, Jewish, whatever. That's just not what America is, and so it needs to be. Again, I said this a million times, course corrected for that. It's one of the easiest kind of things I had against Vivek himself, especially when you see a lot of those little clips that came about a few months ago and people challenged him on that. You know, why won't you say Jesus Christ? People disagree with that who aren't, who don't view that to be the issue. But ultimately, if we're to make America healthy again, and I agree with that in its nature, I think it also extends itself to the American spirit. The soul of America is also dying. It is weak. It is sad. It is pathetic. It is rotting at the core. You don't improve that simply by getting people to go to the gym. You have to pair that with the truth of this world, the way and the life. That is how you improve America at its soul, at its core. And from there, a lot of things will begin to heal themselves and point itself in the right direction. Obviously, not everything, as the nuances and the smaller side bits and the specifics need to be hammered out, even amongst the disagreements that exist in that community as it is in the Christian nationalist community. But ultimately, I would view that as being in the step in the right direction. Newswire, however, they had a quote that caught me off guard, which says, this is from CBS, Newswire is quoting CBS, that Vivek was departing DOGE amid friction with staff, one person close to Trump. Now, we've heard this a million times. One person close to Trump. So take that with a grain of salt. That could be literally anybody. It could be someone who doesn't even matter, who Trump's never even spoken to in their life. It's hard to trust any news organization at all. But the quote does say, Vivek has worn out his welcome. I think a lot of people probably were in Trump's ear about the public response to what Vivek had said about American culture. That's a pretty polite way of putting it. He wore out his welcome. I do want to highlight, though, that Sam Hyde did respond with another video form, similar to what he did with Elon Musk. This is called Dear Vivek. It is worth the listen. It is actually less targeting of Vivek. It actually kind of pokes more fun. It's still a good listen. I think a lot of what's said here is true. And it's wild to see the kind of evolution of Sam Hyde into this astute political commentator and what we see currently from him. It's very enjoyable. I encourage everybody to take a listen to this. You can find it on X, 1.2 million views. Not as popular as the Elon one, as it came a bit later. But I think with the confirmation of Vivek being bounced out, Sam Hyde said, now here's a letter. Here's a goodbye letter to you. Get out of this country. Or, not get out of this country, but get out of office. You have no idea what America is. Stop trying to push these retarded ideas on the American people. We don't want America to be India. We don't want this. And the easiest way to put it, too, is colorblind meritocracy will ultimately, again, look just like the 1950s. If you want a true colorblind meritocracy in this country, it will fall back to a more standard ratio of like workforce being 80 to 90% white with very few women in places they shouldn't be, and a lot less existence of foreign entities. And that's just based on the way that obvious IQ between the races break down, as well as the experience in the people who are in these fields already. I think, what's his name? The man with the world's highest IQ pointed that out earlier, that if we were to have a true colorblind meritocracy that had no fingers on the scale, it would revert people back into thinking that only whites were hiring whites. But that is the way things would naturally break down. That's just the way it is. You can argue amongst yourselves for why that is, but race is real, as well as all of the social, economic, and environmental factors weigh in on that too. That is the current development of the system. That's what it would look like if it were true colorblind meritocracy. And I thought there's a funny addition here too from Sam Hyde as well, because Vivek, speaking of colorblind meritocracy, Vivek keeps tweeting, and he keeps getting a lot of responses to this as well, which he says colorblind meritocracy used to be a progressive idea in the civil rights era. It's a conservative idea today. Now that we finally reached the promised land, it'll be interesting to watch where the next wave of opposition comes from. Sam Hyde says, "Why are you still here?" So true. LOL. People obviously just they want Vivek out of the space. If we kind of organize this by we can just take a look at some of these comments here because I think a lot of people have a lot of good things to say here in regards to that. Dissident Soap says colorblind meritocracy is a losing stratagem if you have even a rudimentary understanding of game theory. It is easily and entirely defeated by any group of people who refuse to follow your made-up colorblind rules. Andrew Torba says colorblind meritocracy is a myth in multi-ethnic, multicultural societies. In-group preferences inevitably override merit, as people naturally favor those like themselves. Let me go to the full thing. Indians and Jews are two perfect examples of how colorblind meritocracy fails in multi-ethnic societies. Both groups have achieved significant success, often attributed to merit. However, in reality, their success is deeply tied to strong in-group preference and nepotism, not just individual talent. Now, I don't know if it's nepotism to say for Christians to only hire Christians. Maybe it is. Maybe that would fall under the guise of nepotism, as I believe nepotism is more like on the familial ties and blood relations, but, I could be wrong about that. So I think in a sense, when you view things from being good versus bad, I think there are good parameters to highlight on people. I think one way that should be allowed would be, hey, I don't want to hire the Satanist. I don't even care if the Satanist is the best person for the job. I don't want the Satanist in my company. Christians only. Boom, done. And if that's nepotism, so be it. I think there's ultimately forms of it that exist that are good. Orrin McIntyre says, conservatives are the real progressives. He says, you really can't stop yourself, can you? Ultimately, there is a truth to the idea, though, that the entire Overton window, the entire political ecosystem has moved left for some time. This is due to the commonly used reference of Tim Pool, which is Republicans are slow down Democrats. They're speed bumps. Rather, they ultimately are being drugged by the progressives who stampede as far left as they possibly can. I'll just say for this, no. If you even take a listen to a lot of some of the spaces that exist on X, especially in like the social media, the engineering, the tech ecosystem, the workforce rather, a lot of what you will hear is white men in particular, talking about how they know and they've had to deal with the fact that they were overqualified or they knew they were qualified and were passed over for Indians or other individuals that were different than them based on racial relations, because that nepotism does exist in different fields, particularly in the tech field for some reason. And I think that's probably been aided by the H-1B visa program and the way that operates when you can bring people in, even on just one singular visa. It's unfortunate to hear, too. I think a lot of people in that space are terrified of what's to come regarding the H-1B stuff, because they just view it as not a viable, or rather a not stable position, knowing that they could be replaced at any moment if their employer decided to replace them for an H-1B visa holder to have better profit margins, or whatever the reasoning may be. And it's very unfortunate to go in those spaces and hear the kind of cries of men who have been replaced and have been dealing with their replacement, but they all say the same things. They know firsthand, they can tell, they give their anecdotal experiences of that they were replaced by Indians, and they know that these Indians were hiring just from within themselves. And talking about, different ways of like, can I prove this? What could I do if I prove that they were hiring just from their own, they discriminated against me for so on and so reasons. But the point stands. We know that it does occur at these levels. I feel behind some of these chants here. Marble says, talking about last time she was in D.C. was Monica Lewinsky trial. That's funny. Downey said, I'm tired of being run by nerds. There should be a minimum bench press and fist fight requirements for Congress. That would be funny. I think anybody, I said this in the Discord too, not too long ago, anybody who wants to even date my daughter will have to best me in hand-to-hand combat, as well as beat me in a game of chess. I don't care which one comes first, but it must be done. Mama Lucas says, printing money doesn't hurt the Jews' rise to success either. And then Marble says, priestess and Catholic ruined everything, men in dresses and funny hats and shoes. Forgive me if I'm missing some of these comments. It looks like YouTube's doing a good job of censoring some of you guys, so I'm probably getting some more in the far side here. So let me just make sure I can read them. Oh yeah, well yeah, I can see for the reasons why it's why YouTube's not letting some of these comments through. Um, but you get to these points where the truth is so overtly in your face, it actually becomes an absolute nuisance to not say it, and people begin to lose credibility for not having the discussion with it, whether they disagree with it or not. Some of the evidence that contextualizes these issues is so open to anyone. We're falling back into this pattern of don't believe your lying eyes, and I hate that so much. Like, it's the same thing in the city with like the black population and black culture. No, definitely, like these blacks like this and this, and it's like, dude, I've lived in the city for 5 years now, maybe even longer. There is such a reality that is a concerted effort rather to hide the reality of what occurs, not even just in immigration, but the outright denial of the way that people behave inside different racial groups, that the hiding of it and refusing to be transparent and refusing to find a solution that would work for everybody, you actually stoke the fire for people to begin to get hateful. And that's when you dive into areas where people begin to get extremely radicalized. Because there's only so long you can tell someone that they shouldn't believe their eyes to be, smacked between them by that same thing that what they were told didn't exist, before they ultimately find different ways to deal with the current context of that situation. Trying to tread carefully here, but ultimately, most people know. And this isn't trying to be this and that, inferior, superior. It's more so, I wish that we would actually hold people accountable to the way that cultures interact, react, and behave, so that we could move things forward. You look at people like the Supreme Court Justice, his name is slipping me right now, Clarence, Supreme Court Clarence. And you see how the black community existed in their early centuries, and the Black Wall Street was a thing. It's clear there has been a very concerted effort from whoever, globalists, whatever, don't matter, to destroy them from the inside out. Whether that's with crack rock or degenerate garbage from hip hop music to just even basic ways of life. The same thing has also been done at a different level to like white men. This idea of how many gay people do you know that are just like these super twink white dudes? It's infuriating, but it's becoming a huge problem. Telling white men, maybe not even just white men, but men in particular too, to be these weak, pathetic, hollowed versions of what they're supposed to be. But it seems that a lot of white men are the ones who fall victim to it, that become lazy, these pedantic, fat, pathetic shells of who they were supposed to be. And I'm not saying this is like I'm some perfect entity, but I think it's pretty easily visible for a lot of people once they begin to look at this stuff. And thank you for that, Marble. Yeah, Clarence Thomas. Malcolm X. You look just 40, 50 years back, and the ultimate conclusion you come to is like, this whole culture just went backwards. Like, they literally just walked backwards, dude. It's devolved into something that should have never existed. Now, I have an idea of who I believe, some Brazilians got in control of something and did everything in their power to subvert them from the inside. But the fact remains is this has been one of the greatest crimes ever committed against a group of people, is to convert them or turn them into whatever iteration they are now, and then tell everyone else who sees it, notices it, or doesn't want to be around it, that they're actually the worst person who ever existed. It's an overall extremely divisive thing, and I just wish we could move forward in the right directions with that. But enough of that side point there. The end point here with Vivek being knocked out of the DOGE, at least shows a good sign that there is some people listening. There's only so far you can go without crossing the MAGA base before you'll get clipped. Like, see ya. You're not here anymore. Bye. Get out. You're gone. Which is a good thing. So maybe will get similar kind of reaction from the Trump administration regarding this Larry Ellison, Oracle, CIA funded AI surveillance system with vaccine therapies from mRNA vaccines that most places will still censor you if you try to go too far in one direction on. We'll see. I hope. I hope I'm wrong, that it's not the future we're kind of bound to. I just don't really see any other way around it, the way that this stuff is propagated by not only just the people that we elect to take these positions, but also the national security apparatus that will argue on behalf of losing to foreign countries on these fronts, that we must do these things. And let me go ahead and read some of these comments here. We got forgive me. Oh yeah, Bamaluga. The ADL was defending the Roman salute from Elon. I thought that was wild too. I would have not expected the ADL to defend it, but I think that raised a lot of eyes because the ADL jumps on everything, no matter how small it is. He says they switched from tuning out white kids to sending them to the trenches real quick. Right, you got to get them ready to go to war with Iran. It's one issue that we're facing here. Marble says, as a girl who needed a job, I used black people to get through my career as a single white unmarried mom accidentally. What? Who needed a job? I used black people to get through my career as a single white married woman. I'm not sure what you mean by that. She said she did it accidentally. I don't know if I'm reading that correctly. But House also says, multiculturalism right now in America has been a failure since the insistence on hyphenation. Multi-ethnic with full assimilation should have been continued. I mean, that's one issue, right? Is there's no assimilation. I mean, they hyphenated, Christian, right? Judeo-Christian. How many times are you going to hear that? All of it's just an absolute. I don't want to go. I don't want to go too far, to be honest, but I probably should. It's all disgusting. It's all evil for one, but it just doesn't work. I'm at the position of just like, maybe we should have just listened to Malcolm X and done some kind of segregation, worked out some kind of segregation of the communities. Not to say like, oh, I don't want to be around these people outright, but I think that the forced togetherness without assimilation, without shared values, it's obvious that there will be constant unrest. There will be constant kind of conflict. It's incessant at this point. It's almost every other day you see some ridiculous story between the races. Now, a lot of people will say, well, that's just because the media reports on it that way. And I think that's true to extent. And sometimes I don't think it's as bad as people say. But you can't move forward without shared values. You simply can't. And it seems that what's been occurring recently is that one group of people will constantly bend the knee and compromise while another group doesn't at all. And that's just not how you move forward with this. It's just ultimately, it's the worst way forward, in my opinion. But enough of the side points there. I wanted to actually move to the Tim Pool and Myron's Gaines little debate they had on Timcast IRL, which was about the freedom of speech on X. And a lot of this did come from what occurred with the H-1B visa debate. And again, I will say this, people are still dissatisfied with what we got. Extremely dissatisfied with what we got. I would say that Elon, in a Hail Mary attempt, seeing he was getting ratioed and nonstop disputed on what he was saying, was like, wait a minute, like, look what's happening in the UK. Look at the grooming gangs in the UK. We can't live with these people. And everyone kind of bit they bit that handout, and we moved away from that. It's very, very unfortunate. But people are continually voicing what they feel and what they think, and that's a good thing, as you should. Do not fear these people. That is the worst thing that you could do. House says separation, not segregation. Malcolm X. Bob says segregation is normal. Every race deserves to preserve itself. Donnie says Malcolm X and George L. Rockwell were right about some stuff. And then Tick says orchestrated the Iran revolution. And it looks like we're going to be getting closer to war with Iran. Unfortunately, that's another side point. We'll see what happens with the 42-day ceasefire that was negotiated that both presidents were trying to claim, credit for. I don't even care. Just like stop sending money over there. It's just some of the most ridiculous garbage I've ever seen in my life. And then let alone call these people our greatest allies. Yeah, it's just such a joke. I almost included a portion about that because Joel Berry, an editor for the Babylon Bee, and Stephen Wolfe, one of the top dog authors for the Christian nationalist movement, I believe he wrote the book that was used, a lot of the iconography that's in the book, A Case for Christian Nationalism, have been going at it for almost like an entire 24 hours now. Because Joel Berry, I believe Chai Rychek did, like all of these Jew first, Israel first, conservative pundits came out with one of these news reports, and they were just all on board for genociding the Palestinian people. I mean, all of them were. I believe Joel Berry had the most explicit tweet where he was talking about these people, they shouldn't have the right for self-determination. They shouldn't have right for their own statehood. They shouldn't have the right, like all the things that would fall under the looser definitions of genocide, which is just removing a people's ability to preserve and exist themselves. That's what he called for. Stephen Wolf opposed it on the grounds of why is this rhetoric happening? Ultimately, it's a good discourse to get involved in, but I'm at the end of my rope with having to care about this, just the Middle East, and seeing these same bad faith actors put fault on these fronts of. I think everybody here in the chat even understands it too, but it's getting to the point where it's like actually like getting me angry. You mean you're seeing people who will buy any piece of propaganda that comes overseas from there, and next thing you know, they're like, this is why we got to kill more women and children, bomb them, glass them all, kill all these people. It's just like, I'm not fighting in that war. You can go do it yourself. Go buy a one-way ticket to Israel, dude, and never come back. And I think trying to get other American men and women to go fight for this under the guise of whatever allyship and whatever news propagation they want to go with is an evil that I can only share a few words with on YouTube. I'll get to the comments here. Let me just go ahead and do these comments because I'm missing a few that aren't popping up in the YouTube. Marble says we have to stop going to war. Yes. And Bob Lucas says, I actually was raised Jewish and found Jesus later in life. I don't understand why Christians call Jews God's chosen people if they refuse to accept Christ. I have a few points with that. One is, I think for myself in particular, who was raised Christian my entire life, was there seems to be an omittance of such. There seems to be a lack of church willpower to talk about these sorts of issues that definitely have real world implications, especially political ones as well. I would argue it's a abdication of responsibility of a lot of pastors, church leaders, and the larger church system as a whole as exists in America, as well as, our politicians and those who choose to put themselves in the positions of authority, who also choose to obfuscate this issue as well. There is again, I hate to use this word, but it's so common because so many things work in tandem with each other. A concerted effort to ensure that people are blind to what is happening, leading people blindly to these ideals that they shouldn't have in the first place, dispensationalism, so many of these things that can only really truly be explored if you're willing to take on you're a Nazi kind of branding. You try to push yourself any kind of way that fights back against blindly accepting this idea of Israel being your greatest ally and they've done nothing wrong and anyone over there is just this vile, disgusting terrorist who doesn't deserve to live, you're going to get called a Nazi. You just asking questions. Are you seriously just asking questions? What else do you know besides they work for Hamas? That's the response you'll get, and it's been like that for quite some time. I would encourage people to go to Rumble and watch like the Occupied documentary. You can also follow Ian Carroll and look at some of the documentaries he's pointed to as well for people who may not be too familiar with the situation that's ongoing there. I would encourage many people to, as much as they possibly can, read up not only on just their Bible on that front, but also on the actual geopolitical, historical context of what's going on there too. You get lied to by the progressives and you get lied to by conservatives, and it's might be the hottest button issue that gets people canceled. And having the wrong opinion about will get you labeled a specific way. I will default though that I think a large portion of the blame falls on the church system, church leaders. The largest people who have been involved in Christianity, mainly Protestantism, dropped the ball and chose to either outright lie, were paid off, or for whatever reason decided, hey, I'm just not going to say anything because I'm too afraid of what my people might label me as if I chose to explore anything that would poke holes in the post-war consensus, or even just the slightest bit of questioning what occurs with the Middle East and our so-called allies over there, and what they may have been allegedly claimed to have done, or violated, or war crimes, or etc., etc. But not to spend too much time on that, because we could spend hours on that, and the next thing you know, I will be on Rumble forever. We're going to go to the Tim Pool and Myron Gaines debate, the freedom of speech debate on X. This is from Charging. I know I saw some comments in here, but I'll have to put my glasses on. Forgive me, I'm behind on the comments, actually. I apologize, not trying to be purposely behind. I just hate wearing my glasses to a degree so much that I really just do not like it. So let me go ahead and pull up here. Because looks like I'm missing a lot of these. I need to add. I also actually have a way to highlight comments the same way we do on StreamYard, but I have to re-put it into OBS, and I got to figure out how to do that because there's a way I can click on a comment and it'll pop up bigger. That way, it's just not here. So let me actually just switch cameras so it's a bit easier to read some of these comments here. I'll make it a bit bigger too. So and I does look like my camera's having issues as well. So I apologize if it's bad quality for you guys. Marble says, we baptized my son first instead of paying for the wedding, and then his father died. I am very sorry to hear that. My condolences for that. That sounds a very rough thing to go through. I would not wish that on anyone, but I apologize. Bamaluga says segregation in schools was actually forced by gunpoint of military. House says, I think I covered some of these. Bamaluga says segregation is normal. Every race deserves to preserve itself. I think I covered some of these already. Baba Lucas says Jews and Arabs aren't criticized for self-segregating. Only whites get called racist for wanting to be around their own people. That is correct. That seems to be the status quo. Tix Bomber says once Muslims stopped being a plaything for Europe, they abandoned them and shut them out of everything. Then wonder why the people who never belonged there are now desperate and the third world comes out. Yes. Go down here. Tix Bomber says, I don't give a fuck if Russian and Ukrainian wants to wipe themselves out. Welcome to the world where I don't care about countries that do nothing for the country. They want USA to be the global merc. Okay, then every country utilizing USA protection pays billions a year into you Americans' big stick, which they should, but we seemingly pay for people and then go do the protection for them. So not only do we spend our money, we spend with American young lives of young men and women who hardly even have an idea of what they're even fighting for in the first place, or fail to understand the large complexes like the military-industrial complex, in the big banking that they're spending their lives for, which is trash. Marvel says, I think I'm going to heaven because I don't have any tattoos. America First TV said, hit that like and subscribe button. Yes, thank you. I would appreciate that. Make sure you do smash the like button and definitely subscribe if you're not already. Take says, what about the pygmies in Africa? If I hear one more side argument like that, that points to that stuff, I'm just, I will say, I will never listen to Tim Pool again. My last episode of listening to him was before Christmas. I've moved off entirely. He's just, I can't take it anymore. Housley Turtle says they bought Billy Graham an airplane and he steered American Christianity in a different direction. I've seen people point out Billy Graham being one of the people. I mean, especially being like that big and that powerful, or influential rather, in the Christian movement. It just makes me sad because it's like, is every man just so susceptible? It's like the One Ring. It's like, is every man who you would think should be the one who stands in the way, at the end of the day, it's just some pathetic guy like Isildur who will put the ring on because he just cannot beat the influence. He can't beat the desire of the flesh. And I think that might be maybe one of the biggest black pills I have. Tick says, what about 75-year-old dope fiend great grandma in America? Because the government allowed Big Pharma to make senior citizens the largest growing opiate addicts. I won't say who said it, but if you are in the Discord, there's a phenomenal rant that somebody posted, the boomer rant, anti-boomer rant, rather. It's very enlightening, and it's a great way to kind of break down what people have a lot of issues with boomers for. I use that term loosely, though. Anybody who's like 24 hours older than me, I consider a boomer, so don't take it too harshly. Robo says, I saw the Jews were going, we covered that one. Donnie said, Tim is a spook. Yeah, I don't know what he is, but I just know that he's not a good faith individual, and I don't know, somebody's paying him. Still curious to know what happens with the Tenet Media operation and the Russian collusion stuff there. Who knows? Lauren Shen kind of disappeared completely. Same thing with Lauren Southern. She like had to go on stand and talk about her relationship with Destiny. Like all this disgusting stuff comes out, and it's like, yeah, I hope everyone knows I called that about Lauren Southern a year ago. Maybe even longer than that. I was on here forever saying Laura Southern is not a conservative. She has weird ties to intelligence agencies. You don't marry someone without knowing that they are affiliated with like the FBI or the CIA. And ultimately, she's a feminist. She's a subverted. Like she's entirely subverted. She had an affair with Destiny, who is in a whack job, a pervert. There's not even a way to describe Destiny besides he's just like a massive cuck. He's not even a man. And she was posting like, I just love the way you think, Destiny. Yeah, like that's a conservative woman. But that's what sucks, right? Is like, I could tell that from listening to maybe 3 videos from Lauren Southern and seeing the way she behaves and go, yeah, this person sucks. Like this is a feminist. Like this is I'm anti 5th wave feminism, but I definitely love all the first 4 waves. Like, yeah, get the out of the conservative movement, dude. How about women stop speaking? like never e-girls, dude. Like I've yet seriously, maybe I'm wrong and just an idiot, but outside of Whitney Webb, there's not one singular female commentator that I listen to and I'm like, oh dude, yeah, wow, so based, man. Like, wow, dude, this one's a conservative. Well, okay, forgive me. Rachel Wilson's pretty solid. Yeah. Dude, this woman's so based, guys. You hear what that woman said about conservative politics? Like, dude, like, I want to unalive myself. And I'm not, this isn't me being anti-woman. I'm just, women are so blind to how much of feminism that they have already absorbed and you can't expect them to fulfill the position of men, to be the leaders that God has called us to be as men. It's so backwards. And that's a whole nother issue too. I want to get into this video, but it's a whole other issue of just like, they just can't. I mean, it's just like, it's against God's design, right? They can't even, they're not even meant to be preaching, let alone fulfilling any other kind of leadership position that would hold themselves in authoritative position over men. It's just not how it's supposed to work. I mean, it's like, it's a extremely just basic idea to grasp as a Christian, as just a Christian, let alone a Christian man, but as a Christian as a whole. It just, yeah. And then you have all the simps who are like, oh wow, I love what you're wearing today, Lauren. Oh, it's so hot. I wish I was next to you today, Lauren. I love what you read the other day on your video. Like, I did. Just like, this is me reading those comments. Like, I mean, I don't get mad like that, but it's just like, it's so pathetic, dude. There's no other way around it. It's so pathetic, dude. I unfollow so many guys all the time who I see for other political takes. I'm like, oh, it's great. And then I find them like simping on some girl's page. I'm like, dude, like you failed me, dude. You let me down. Dick said, can we move to at least you don't have to voice your opinion on everything? Yeah, no, 100%. Sidney Watson's also one of those just gross, dude. Just so gross. Like, I'm a conservative because I think there's only 2 genders. Like, yeah, welcome to 1920, where everyone understood that. Like, you're not a conservative just because you don't, like, you don't believe in trans people, dude. Like, you could call yourself a biologist and believe that garbage. It's just like, it's just so absurd, dude. Oh, yeah, Tix. I gave you money. Why won't you acknowledge my super chat? I sent you $3,000 for a picture. Why won't you call me back? Oh my gosh. And it's like, it's how do you fight it, right? If the majority of men behave that way and these women get addicted to the attention and you say, I mean, you literally say anything about it, you go, dude, you're just being a simp, or like, dude, we need women. Wow. Do you hate women? Misogynist? What are you, gay or something? You don't love everything that Lauren Southern says? What are you, gay? Like, dude. Okay, not to spend too much time on it. I think everybody kind of gets the idea. Donnie Brooks says we need to shame gay boys and simps. Dick says, welcome to critical thinking, IQ greater than 37. Yeah, no, yeah. Current state of politics, man. That's why I got to do what I got to do, because I tell you what, dude, I am not afraid to tell women no. I'm not afraid, dude. We need more men who are willing to just not be pathetic gay boys. I almost said something else, but I don't think YouTube likes that comment very much. Okay. Enough though. Daily anti-women rant. This is Tim Pool and Myron debating freedom of speech versus freedom of reach on the Timcast IRL episode, and this is following the fallout from the H-1B visa discussion. So go ahead and play this, and I'll comment where I feel like it is necessary.
Saying he got boosted on a video game, that's problematic. This guy's drunk with power. Like, let's just call a spade a spade. We disagree with him on the H-1B visa. Yeah, he exposed the DMs and he took his blue check away. So like, this is problematic because he comes in saying,
that is, yes. Case in point right here from Donnie right there. That's what you'll see. Except, you'll even see it's even worse examples with OnlyFans of I gave you my whole life savings. You didn't even call me back. Like, dude, that's pathetic. You deserve to lose your life savings if you're going to give it to a whore on the internet because she thought she was going to respond to you. You idiot. She's using ChatGPT to respond to the 1,000 messages she's getting. You idiot. Bring back bullying, dude. Make men great again. And House is not a traditionalist from the 1990s, but traditionalist from the 1990s. Did you get? Yeah. I don't even know where I'd put myself. I'm gonna go ahead and restart this. We get the full picture here. I'll go ahead and play it again. I appreciate the super chat though. Thank you very much, Donnie.
as now, if you disagree with him or you go against, I mean, he took a blue check from Osmongold for saying he got boosted on a video game. That's problematic. This guy's drunk with power. Like, let's just call a spade a spade. We disagree with him on the H-1B visa. Yeah, he exposed the DMs and he took his blue check away. So like, this is problematic because he comes in saying, I believe in free speech. The Don Lemon interview goes viral everywhere. I believe it's the bedrock of democracy. Frames it against the First Amendment. Well, stand on that, dude. Because you can't sit there and say, so well, I'm going to demonetize people, take their subscribers, and take their premium away.
Why does that mean free speech grants you access to someone's labor?
What do you mean? Free speech grants, what do you mean by someone's labor?
So X builds a service.
Yes.
On top of that service are other things you can have.
Yep.
Okay. Why should you get access to the labor of the company?
Because he marketed it that saying it's a free speech app.
So you're saying
I'm holding Elon to his word.
So a business in this country can never sever a relationship with a client.
Well, my thing is, if you're going to market it as a free speech app and then you are going to censor people for the free speech that you promote, that's a problem.
But they're not silencing your free speech. They're taking away a payment processing service.
And they're also taking away your reach because the verification absolutely affects your ability to reach
Your ability to speak is not advertising for you. Why do you think a network should be forced to do something for you?
I didn't realize Tim Pool was supporting the censorship on X. I would say right here, before it even gets much further, is that argument falls on its face. Anybody who's used X for a long enough period of time understands that anything that you post at all gets to maybe, like, if you're lucky, gets like 50% of your following. That obviously takes a huge drop off the bigger your account is, right? So if you have like 100,000 followers, every tweet that you post is not going to have 100,000 impressions. But he is defending ultimately the argument that was used to support the adpocalypse on YouTube. Towing the line is a good way to put it. When people have been punished for certain things they've said, it obviously will shape the entire ecosystem around avoiding those things so that you can remain in the good graces and not lose money. Obviously, the biggest players in these political systems and debate and discussions will avoid that because they do this for a living. Yes, Tim Pool is extremely hard to listen to. This guy has licked so many boots in such a short period of time. I am disgraced that I listened to his show for as long as I did. One thing I will always say is I think he at least extends his platform to people he disagrees with, obviously outside of Nick Fuentes, but that's all he has now. That's all that he has is just his platform. Everything that comes out of his mouth now is utter trash. I find it hard to not only listen to him, but I find it hard to agree with him on anything anymore. I'm curious to see how hard Myron debates on this. I know Myron's not the best debater, but he does hold a lot of the similar values as do I.
You want to go? You want free speech? Go stand on a street corner in downtown Chicago. You can say whatever you want.
Sure.
Why should anyone be forced to amplify your message for your speech?
Well, it's not about being forced. It's about you pay for the service, and then he says it's free speech, and it's not free speech. He lied. So that's why he's getting a lot of issues with this.
We're gonna try this
where
again.
Look, if you're going to market as a free speech app, Tim, you have to stand on it.
No, bro, you're misunderstanding. You are not banned, right?
No.
So he marketed a platform for free speech, and you are still allowed to speak.
Yes.
He offered you a premium service that allows you to make money on the platform.
Which directly affects your reach, which affects your ability, your free speech. It does affect your speech because it affects your reach.
No. Your ability.
Freedom of speech is contingent upon reach, Tim. That's where me and you disagree.
No, absolutely not. No one has to advertise you and promote you to other people for you to have free speech.
Freedom of reach means
you are only saying that because you are being negatively impacted by a private action of a private company.
That advertises freedom of speech.
They allow you to keep speaking. They've not censored your speech?
They have.
No, they have not.
Yes, they have.
What words of yours have they deleted?
I get posts taken all the time, visibility limited because of for hate speech.
So in the confines of Elon's moral code, what is
problematic?
What is misaligned with the rules that have always been in place since
That's problematic because he interprets.
This is kind of insane, to be honest. One thing that's being left out is like, dude, suppression is a censorship mechanic. Like, ensuring, for one, obviously, the visibility limited because you determine based on, or Elon and his services determine that is hateful or for whatever reason they want to put there, and suppressing that outright by limiting the visibility or ability to interact with the tweet or engage with it is suppression. So to argue, because he's not banned, that in no way is it censorship is an insane. I can't. These people are so bought into whatever this global homo just BS is that they will shill in anything, dude. Anything. And this is a guy who supposedly was a free speech absolutist up until like 2 months ago because Elon deigned it not to be. It's just insane, dude. Let's keep going.
Interprets what's hate speech now.
Okay, you're conflating two different things. If we're talking about Elon taking over a company and marketing a service with hate speech rules that we all disagree with, you knew what you were buying when you bought it.
Well, here's the thing. Again, it's selective enforcement.
And it's always
and
Twitter was and X is.
And it's supposed to be free speech, and that's where the issue lies. Where, look, if you're going to market this as a free speech app, that means hate speech as well. And then again, like I said before, freedom of speech only matters if you have freedom of reach.
Are you aware that Elon has never unbanned some accounts?
Yes.
So you knew when you bought the service, Elon was selectively enforcing the censorship policies.
It depends. In what regard do you mean? Like,
you say Elon advertised the service. That was for free speech. But you knew he was selectively enforcing the rules.
Well, here's the thing. Those people were banned before he even came into power.
And he never unbanned them. And he outright said explicitly, I will not unban some of these people.
And he unbanned them. So he goes back. He unbanned Alex Jones. He unbanned a couple of people. Unbanned Nick Fuentes, etc.
Sure. So, and there's still a lot of accounts that have never been unbanned.
Like, I don't know who they are, but I mean.
They exist.
Like, I mean, look, my argument is simply this. If you're going to come in and say, the free speech app and model it after the First Amendment like he did, stand on it. That's all I'm saying. And taking away people's premium
and the point of the
penalizing them for saying hate speech is antithetical to freedom of speech.
So the issue at play right now is...
And we can agree to disagree, Tim. It's fine.
I believe you are arguing you are deserving of a service that a private company is selling because you want to be advertised. And you are arguing First Amendment protections, or at least principles, free speech principles, because you want promotion.
No. I'm arguing free speech principles that they advertise and said that is our app.
Doesn't matter. That's free speech never said you get advertising. End of story.
No.
You don't get advertising.
This is where me and you can agree to disagree, and that's fine.
I think that's I think that's communism.
But I think by the idea that censoring
dude, this whole thing of anything I disagree with is communism is just garbage. Like, he's trying to frame it in a way that he's saying that Myron is trying to position himself that he's entitled to the service in which that he paid for. Like, and they're all avoiding the suppression mechanics, right? Myron is 100% correct. in the fact that Elon said this will be a free speech app. So what is free speech? Free speech immediately doesn't become free speech the moment you implement parameters on what free speech is. Done. End of story. End of story. But Tim's trying to pervert this whole argument so that he can say that what Myron's arguing for is for communism. That he wants a you can't take him seriously anymore. You can't take this garbage serious at all.
A company must give me a service.
That is antithetical. That is antithetical to freedom of speech by limiting someone's reach. It is antithetical because speech has no need if it can't reach people. If I can't reach the marketplace of ideas, what do you like? What's the point?
So when you go out in the middle of the street in Chicago and you start yelling, what reach do you have?
Well, the people there can hear me, right, to a degree. But what I'm saying is that, again, if you're going to market it as a free speech app,
should you be legally allowed to use an amplifier?
Should you be legally what?
Should you be legally allowed to use an amplifier for your speech?
Well, I think if that platform is going to advertise and say we believe in free speech and use the First Amendment, that needs to stand by it. That's my thing.
In public, should you?
I'm simply just holding Elon to his word. That's all I'm doing.
But it's been
problematic.
I think you're personally aggrieved and you want something from a private company.
I mean, it's not me even having a personal issue with it. Like, I don't care because like Twitter isn't my main thing. But what I'm saying is that it's extremely hypocritical to say this is a free speech app, model after the First Amendment, and then go back on that and then take people's checks away for disagreeing with you on H-1B visas.
We don't disagree.
That's what he did.
We don't disagree on selective enforcement.
Yep.
Where we disagree is that you think he should be promoting you.
No, I think he should be allowing everyone to have a fair seat at the table and have their voice heard. Everybody.
How have you lost reach?
When you lose verification, your ability to be seen drops off precipitously. This is a fact.
So there's a paid
he's
service.
even said this with premium.
There's a paid service. So you believe that your words should be presented in a feed for other people algorithmically to discover.
No, I think the best ideas should be able to be discovered and let the people decide, but it's not even reaching is my point.
So can people still follow you?
But if you're shadow banned or you're
they can go to your account and they can see what you're posting, right?
Yeah, but you're shadow banned. You can't discover it. It doesn't come up on the feed.
Not having premium doesn't shadow ban you.
It absolutely limits your ability. Yeah, it deprioritizes you, which is shadow banning, and it hurts your ability to be seen. Which is
shadow banning is when you are removed from the space entirely without your knowledge.
Yeah, well, here's
That's
the
why
thing.
it's ban.
Yeah. But here's again, it's harder for people to find you. Your tweets don't post up on the news feed as usual. They're for you. So that is all censorship. That is all censorship, Tim. I mean, you might disagree with me, but that is all a form of censorship.
And
I'm against all censorship.
There's an argument. I mean, well, I'll throw it to you guys because we can take it away from us.
Sure.
Do you guys believe that
we could agree to disagree, Tim? It's fine. But yeah.
Lectern guy, Adam, should platforms be required to offer you some degree of promotion in your content?
I think if you pay for it, I think you enter a contract, right? I'm paying for services. You should provide services. At any point, I can end that contract. It's Elon's house, right? If I invited you to my house and come hang out, say what you want, and you're being rude.
All right. Well, don't listen to Tim on anything ever again. This is one thing I kind of thought too was a lot of what we saw in the original Twitter 1.0. The censorship argument was laid as such, where they said, well, hey, even if you're banned on Twitter, you can just still go outside and say things. So now he is exactly parroting what the original Twitter 1.0, as well as the original Facebook censorship group people were saying was, we didn't infringe on your freedom of speech. You can still go outside in a public square and yell. I think House makes a great point there, though. We go back up to it and we find it. With House saying the Supreme Court ruled 5-3 in favor of Marsh, holding the First Amendment's protections of freedom of speech and religion apply to privately owned property that functions as a public space. Need someone to challenge censorship in court, and I agree. He's avoiding the most obvious thing, which is when you pay for a service and the contract is broken because for whatever reason, and he agrees that there's selective enforcement of such, that it is a suppression mechanic. Arguing that he is not being suppressed for what he is saying is the most insane thing I have ever heard. I'm honestly, I didn't think that Tim would even take this. I thought he would have agreed a lot more with the way with where Myron was at. But we've reached the point where Tim must lick the boot as viciously and as aggressively as humanly possible because he is an absolute establishment show. Very disappointed in Tim Pool there. And I doubt the lectern guy has anything valuable to say. The guy's good for the J6 stuff he spoke out against, but he's not a political commentator. I just, I really don't care what he has to say there, to be honest. That's that, right? Like, I think there's your discussion there. There's what Tim Pool feels about the censorship debate and issue that has occurred. I am glad that Myron chose to stand up for himself and go on there to debate that issue. We'll never see Nick Fuentes on there. We will never see many others who were afflicted by this. I have not seen a singular post from Laura Loomer ever since she was initially de-verified. I don't know how often any of you guys use X, but I am telling you, from the day that she has done that, I have not seen one post from Laura Loomer, and I used to see them all the time. She not only was suppressed and censored and de-verified, but they eliminated her subscriptions as well. People who were paying her via X as the transaction adjudicator. That happened to a few other people as well. The crazy thing with that too, with the conversation started with the fact that Asmongold also lost his badge because he got into an argument with Elon Musk. Asmongold didn't even say anything that you could even say violated TOS. He was just pointing out the fact that Elon lied about being a gamer and he lost his badge for a couple of days or a few hours, even at least did that. And then he lost his like little gamer tag or the badge affiliate that goes with it too. So do with that what you will. This isn't even a case of like never meeting your heroes. This is just a case of you just have to speak out for yourself. Anybody who makes it too big in this industry ultimately gets bought out and is paid for by establishment reasons or is paid out and bought sentiment for some kind of source, whether it's some big tech. Clearly in this case, it's the fear of going against Elon and wanting to maintain a platform or business that makes more money than it does with any kind of true holding to any principle. I'm not even surprised, to be honest. I mean, I'm a little surprised. I would have thought Tim Pool would have argued against the censorship a little bit, but I think because it's the same group of people, that dissident alt-right group of people who were all, attacked by it, who were afflicted by it in the first place, we're just not going to see him defend those individuals. I think it's just a gross way to even lay out your platform as Elon did, and then backtrack on everything that you laid out because people disagreed with you. The selective enforcement, all of it. Maybe it was a Trojan horse. Maybe that was the whole purpose, was get people all gathered together and trick them into that we have free speech on these platforms, and then ultimately it's just a lie. What can you even say? This is where we are. Free speech absolutism is dead. Because you just can't. You can't. Nobody will have a free speech as long as there are these ultimate big players in the ad system and the ad revenue that are held by gunpoint to advertisers who have a set of moral code that does not align with the First Amendment or does not at least allow a simultaneous existence with what the First Amendment would bring with it, which is, mean stuff and people not agreeing with you. It's not going to happen. You can't, money is the master of all. Money enslaves all of these people. There's only so much you can even take from somebody who's making a lot of money to be like, is this really what they say? Like, how much of this is paid sentiment? And that goes for everybody in the space too. It's so hard to trust anybody. I mean, Alex Jones is like, he went off the deep end somewhere just 6, 7, 8 months ago. It's hard to trust him on anything either. Who knows what we're going to get? But that's pretty much the show for today. Like a minute short of just going for 2 hours. I wanted to say I appreciate everybody for being here. No announcements though. Not that I can think of. Saturday, we will be getting back together again. Chris will be with us talking about his foundation. His hard launch of the foundation, that is. We'll provide some more information about that as well. I know he's not here right now. I think Chris himself is streaming wherever he's at, probably on YouTube or Twitch, whatever his platforms are. You know, money enslaves all these people. Principle is something that just doesn't exist anymore. That's why I wish there was some kind of system that would force people, like if they were paid to say these things or toe this company line or toe this establishment line, when you click on that video, it's got to say at the beginning, at the bottom, some disclosure that says the ADL has paid this person to say this specific thing. That way, you know, when they say it, you go, okay, I now know that this person, they very well believe what they're saying, but at least I know now that they were paid to say that. And it's not an organic opinion. There's some transparency there too. And yeah, like, subscribe to the video. I appreciate it very much. Hope everybody has a good rest of your night. It was a pleasure to be with you guys again. Hopefully by Saturday, I will have my contacts in as well, so I would stop looking like an old boomer dad. I put my glasses on so I can see things better. Screw Tim Pool. That guy is a absolute sellout. Props to Myron Gaines for charging forward again. I just hope the dissident right can continue to garner the momentum that it has and continue pushing against. Looks like we're going to have to join forces with MAHA and fight against an AI surveillance system. Christ is king, as always. Make sure you're reading your Bible, staying up with that too. Make sure you are being as spiritually strong as you are mentally, as well as physically. Always, always practice self-preservation and be there for your families, for the men. Be strong fathers, good husbands. For the women, be good wives, good mothers. I appreciate all of you. Everybody have a good rest of your night, and I will see you on Saturday. Take care.
Let's roll, rolling Atlas Dogged. We here to bring the truth. Jar open this podcast. We breaking through the fake news. They try to silence us, but we will be subdued. We're bearded alpha males here to save the youth. Spitting fire on the mic with the bass Christian takes. Exposing the lies, keeping the demons at bay. We ain't afraid to speak up. We won't be swayed. Jar open this podcast where the truth is laid. Jar openers, cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas Dogged. We're here to rise. Bearded alpha males saving the youth from the godless demons, spreading the truth. We ain't playing games, we're on a mission to awaken the masses with our intuition. Pulling out the corruption with no inhibition. Jar open this podcast, sparking a revolution. We're not afraid to stand tall in a world full of deceit. We're the voice of reason, bringing light to the street. Keeping it real, never missing a beat. Jar open this podcast where the truth meets the heat. Jar openers, cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas Dogged, we're here to